G'day YouTube, warbles not a lot here. Those of you familiar with my channel will remember that I got a Peltier powered propeller as a birthday present. And I had a lot of fun with it. And then I gradually got irritated by the pressed sheet metal fan with which the manufacturer had equipped the device. Speaking as a sort of time-expired propeller carver, everything about it was wrong. The Wright brothers had a better air screw. And so I resolved to have a go at making a better propeller than that. And I made a laminated wooden propeller and it worked. And I made another laminated wooden propeller and it worked, but it embodied a particular high lift, low speed aerofoil that was good on an ultralight and not particularly good on an air screw. So I made a third propeller that used a boomerang aerofoil and it worked particularly well. And by that point I was getting fairly excited about the idea of making wooden propellers and sticking them onto eBay acquired Chinese Peltier powered drive units. So I asked my son to get me more, and he did. He got me 2 of them, and they were a sort of a new, updated, more modified design, and they had a pressed sheet metal air screw, which was technically an improvement in that it had a flat non-helical pitch rather than a reverse helical pitch. However, flat pitch rather than cambered, badly cambered, but it was cambered. Once again, ease of manufacture and perhaps being very generous, low operating drag in order to perhaps try and coax maximum RPM seemed to have been the major design criterion. And yeah, I wasn't happy with that either, but considering that all I wanted was the Peltier powered drive unit for the air screw, didn't bother me that they were horrible. So while they were available, I lashed out, and yeah, I've acquired 5 of the damn things, and one of them has been at my mother's for 2.5, 3 months, and it racked up 500 hours, and she was highly delighted with it, with its Aboriginal boomerang aerofoil section, and she was using it on her slow combustion stove. And she, at about the 500-hour mark, I arrived at the old girl's house just on sundown, as I often do, and the first thing I noticed was that the propeller on her Peltier unit was uncommonly still and had gone terribly dark on the bottom, and it was sitting on top of the slow combustion stove. The bimetallic strip on the bottom of the base plate was curled up and sticking out like a banana, and the wires going into its Peltier unit appear to have been completely cooked, while the motor itself doesn't appear to be damaged, and the varnish isn't in its pristine state, except on the tip of the blade that was as far from the stove as possible. So what I think has happened is that the old girl has lit the fire, and instead of waiting for the hot plate to heat up before putting the stove fan onto the hot plate, she's put the stove fan onto the hot plate and then she's lit the fire. So as the hot plate has warmed up, the heat gradient from here has not kept up with the hot air which has heated up the heat sink. So there's been no temperature differential across the Peltier unit, so it hasn't made enough electricity to get past the cogging on the motor, and so it's never drawn enough air past it to keep the Peltier unit cool enough to remain a Peltier unit. So she's just cooked it, and she's cooked the varnish as well. So that's what can happen after 500 hours in operation, when the person who's using it forgets how to use it, and the whole system all falls down. And in the meantime, during the same 2.5 months, when I haven't been doing anything at all on the woodwork bench to do with propellers, because first I broke 2 axes in one day, and therefore I had to put an axe handle in, and then I got sort of sidetracked by fire hoses and bushfire fuel hazard reduction and worrying about the fire season we're going into. During that 2.5 months where I haven't made any videos about Peltier powered propellers, because I've been otherwise occupied, because life's busy and I do get occupied with other things. The Original unit with the Original handmade propeller, it's been in here doing a dust accumulation airflow study 500 hours long, and it's quite interesting. Once, probably twice, as I've been leaning in to stoke the fire, the brim of my hat has touched the tip and dislodged, a little bit of the dust. Not much. As you can see, dust falls vertically onto any kind of a horizontal surface, and it doesn't land at all on your vertical surfaces. When in operation, dust runs into the leading edge of the air screw. So let's go out into the sunlight and see what we have learned in 500 hours of dust accretion airflow studies on that propeller. Now the way this works is, when it's in operation, the dusty air runs into the air screw and it sticks some of the dust onto the air screw. And by seeing where the dust sticks and how thick it sticks, whoops, very difficult to frame this, sadly, I'm afraid. You get some idea of where the air is impinging. As you'd expect, there's a lot of dust stuck to the underside of the leading edge. And you've got a very clean area just behind that on the line of the maximum curvature. Both blades. Small things amuse small minds, and I find that fascinating. Being able to map the relative air pressure and the angle of attack in the dust. Stuck to the blades in, 500 hours of operation. So, other than the fact that she managed to cook the first one by virtue of putting it on the stove too soon, the old girl was absolutely deliriously happy with the thing. She said she doesn't want me to try and sand the burn mark off the propeller. She reckons that adds character. It's considered patina perhaps. So the obvious thing to do is to open the box and I don't often do unboxings, but this shows you that is definitely the particular angle of the dangle and the orientation on the fan that the manufacturer prefers. Very cute. Interestingly, nothing in the manual tells you not to put the fan on the stove until the stove is heated up. That's something that I learnt from watching an Englishman on a YouTube video. Neither does the manual for the earlier model. So all there is to do now is to remove this thus, and then using pliers I should be able, there we go, to remove the propeller from the damaged unit. Taking this opportunity to show you how the heatsink is cast into the shape of flames. Also to highlight the difference between cooked bimetallic and cooked wiring insulation, and fresh bimetallic and fresh undamaged insulation. And the old burnt propeller isn't so terribly burnt on the other side, so it's still a press fit, just a bit loose actually. Loose to the point where it's going to get one drop of super glue. And I'll put that in that side up, and that'll just lock that propeller onto the shaft without doing any damage to the bearing. While this cooked unit, it can have the brand new propeller snug down tight, and that's a gift for a friend of mine who's studying electronics engineering, and he wants to pull it to pieces and see why it failed. So I'll give it its packing back, put it back in its, oh, hang on, got that wrong. As I was saying, in its very carefully thought out protective packaging, and put it back in the box to take get in there and give to my mate. After first carefully marking the box to indicate that this unit has been cooked. The old lady's cooked propeller with patina freshly attached has had its drive unit jacked up by the radiator cap and been replaced entirely new. I've now only got 4 drive units waiting for propellers. My unit is still in service, and I'll probably brush the dust off it now that I've seen what 500 hours of it looks like. Old mate, the aspiring electrical engineer, has got a Peltier unit to play with, and that's the state of the art. I've been meaning to make this video probably for about a week. Warbles on a lot to YouTube. Ciao.